Hello everyone, and welcome back to Animation Station, your number one substitute for anything and everything animation, including a sponge that lives in a pot. You get it by now, don't you? If you want an explanation for why there was such a hiatus on this channel, watch the previous video. I explained it there, but unfortunately we're ending the day on a really sour note, because now that we got the one episode review out of the way, now it's time to take out the trash, because we have 4 infamous, terrible, garbage, horribly written, absolutely abominable episodes to talk about. Why am I doing it in 4? Because A, I'm falling behind, and B, because all these are so bad that I just want to get them all out of the way as quick as possible, so you're getting 4 episodes in one video. Something I don't think I've done since SpongeBob on Chapter 3. So, yeah, special occasion indeed, because, oh boy, I don't want to talk about any of these episodes, but the good news is, after I do, I don't have to talk about or mention them ever again. So, today's episode reviews are SpongeBob RoundPants, or To Square Pants or Not to Square Pants. Both titles are stupid. Use whichever one, I don't care. Squid's Visit, The Splinter, and Slide Whistle Stooges. Yeah, 4 very, very infamous and very, 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 very bad episodes. So, let the torture begin. Let's start with SpongeBob RoundPants. Okay, maybe I was hyperbolating a bit when I said that this was among the 4 infamous episodes of the entire season. It is one of those regular 11-minute episodes that Nickelodeon hyped up as a ratings trap for whatever stupid reason. But out of all these episodes, this is the one that's the least terrible. It's still a bad episode, but it's not terrible. It's definitely easily the best out of these 4, and you're going to see why when we get to the other 3. But this episode is just lazy. It is 100% lazy. What's the big plot of the episode? Well, SpongeBob is forced to change his pants. That's literally the plot. SpongeBob has to change his pants because Gary ends up leaving them in the dryer for too long. Well, it was also Patrick's fault, but we'll get to him. So, because of this, SpongeBob has to get new pants, and the pants he gets now are round. And suddenly, everyone thinks that he is a completely different person. Stupid. Very stupid, very lazy, and very pointless. Then, after some shenanigans, if you want to label it that, but it's really just time filler, then he ends up back at the Krusty Krab, he reapplies for another job, and we get to the one good part of the episode. This is the part that did make me laugh, and I actually would like to see like a whole episode of this. SpongeBob acts like Squidward with Squidward in the Krusty Krab. That one scene alone keeps this from being bottom barrel garbage like the other 3 episodes we have to talk about are. But aside from that scene, this episode's pointless. Because it's literally just SpongeBob changes his pants. Woohoo. How long did it take you to think of that idea? But I will say this. This episode is not as bad in hindsight, because they actually did bring this plot back in Season 10? Yeah, Season 10, in SpongeBob Long Pants. And that episode is legitimately great. And I'll talk about why when we get to, SpongeBob Month 10. But it is not that bad in hindsight, because they did reuse the plot, and they actually made it work, because that episode is more about maturing too quick, rather than just a change of clothes making you look like a different person. I mean, yeah, it kind of still is, but it's not to the point of, the whole plot. Like I said, we'll get to it when we get to SpongeBob Month 10. Point is, This episode may be bad, but they did manage to redeem it a little bit, and it does have one really funny good scene. So, because of that, I'm going to be nice to the episode, and I will give it a score of a 3 out of 10. It is still a bad episode, it is still lazy, and Patrick is the worst in this one, let me tell you. Like, he doesn't recognize SpongeBob when he has different pants on, despite the fact that aside from that, he looks exactly the same. He's the reason that SpongeBob even ended up shrinking his pants in the first place, because he kept him on the phone the whole time making a stupid sound effect with his mouth. Patrick sucks in this episode. So, this episode may be bad, but it's not that bad. It's not terrible. It's one that's more entry-level bad. It's one that I can ignore. But these other three, oh boy, we're about to dive into the pits of hell. Because these next three are some of the most infamously terrible episodes in the entire series. So, let's begin our descent into madness with Squid's visit. How do I even start this? This episode has been talked about to death by everybody, including both Enter and Phantom Strider. Well, I guess I can try to give it my best shot. This episode sucks just as much as you've heard. Is it a 0? No, it's not a 0 out of 10, but it is still a terrible garbage dumpster fire episode, and we're going to talk about why. Because this is one that falls into the infamous category of the endless amounts of Squidward torture episodes. And this is one of the worst in that category. So let's just get it out of the way nice and quick. There's no highlights because this episode is just freaking trash. So let's just get the synopsis out of the way so we can rip this thing apart. So, what's the plot of the episode? Well, it's actually pretty simple. SpongeBob wants Squidward to come and visit him. You know, being neighborly and all. But Squidward, after straight up telling him no, SpongeBob starts crying. Always a nice addition to any animated atrocity. Then after he's done that and he's just pouting, and Patrick is trying to put together a puzzle with glue. I'm not even going to bother. SpongeBob comes with the idea of borrowing something to make Squidward come and visit him. So SpongeBob he steals his vacuum cleaner, which pretty much forces Squidward to go over to his house for a visit. And what is this visit? Well, it's SpongeBob remodeling his entire house to look exactly like Squidward's. From the stitches in the pillow, chips in the paint from when Squidward first moved in, and even copying all the portraits. And apparently doing an even better job than Squidward himself. This is creepy, this is stalker behavior, and this is not at all suitable for children. There's not even any good jokes in the episode, because the whole episode's about Squidward just descending into madness, seeing how much SpongeBob has completely replicated his house in the most creepy and absolutely just horrid way possible. And then, when all hope seems lost, Squidward finds his vacuum cleaner and finally gets out of this house of horror. But what does he come back to? He comes back to his entire house burnt down because he left a casserole in the oven because he had to go deal with SpongeBob, which leads to Squidward having a mental breakdown with his vacuum cleaner, and then ends with him sleeping in SpongeBob's house, which is still remodeled to look exactly like his house, while the little yellow freaking stalker maniac sleeps outside. So yeah, SpongeBob steals someone's property. He openly displays that he is an outright disgusting, creepy stalker. And he gets no repercussion for any of his actions in the end, and Squidward just suffers all the way through. Dude, screw this episode. For real, this episode is trash. Like, I thought it was bad when I first watched it, but it just gets worse and worse every time I'm forced to sit through it. But thankfully, after this review, I never have to talk about it again. Aside from, mentioning all the other endless amount of Squidward torture episodes, because for some reason, someone in the writing team has a fetish for that. So yeah, this episode is unfunny, lazy, and completely terrible of Squidward. And it's also creepy. It is stalker syndrome. And it is just insufferable the whole way through because like Squidward, the audience just feels creeped out. They don't feel happy. They don't feel joyful that Squidward came to visit SpongeBob because SpongeBob forced him to come visit him because he stole something of his. But what happens? Well, SpongeBob gets no repercussions, and Squidward's entire house burns down. Dude, screw this episode. Final verdict's a 1 out of 10. Trash. Absolute abysmal trash, and someone should have been fired from it. Well, I wish I could say that it doesn't get any worse, but, we're not so lucky, because next we gotta talk about what many people consider the most disgusting, grotesque, and horrible episode of the entire show. An episode so infamous that it started the Mysterious Mr. Enters YouTube channel when he talked about it. It was his most popular video, and it started his series of animated atrocities. And I have been dreading talking about it for 6 years. Let's dive in to the Splinter. Can I just give this episode a 0 and move on? Can I please? I don't want to talk about it. Everyone else has talked about it to death. We all know it's one of the most grotesque, disgusting, horrid, putrid, hideous, grotesque, and just lazy, stupid, freaking dumb, and terrible episodes in all of SpongeBob. And whoever thought this was suitable for kids is sick in the head. This episode is so infamous, so horrid, that it actually has made people puke. I'm not joking. I have heard horror stories all over the internet about how this episode is so disgusting and grotesque that people actually puked. I can't say I blame them. I should be desensitized to gore because, I'm a gorehound. I watch horror movies all the time. But for whatever reason, this episode just gets under my skin. And maybe it's the portrayal of the injury. Maybe it's because it's not cartoony. It's supposed to be realistic. Or maybe it's just that this episode is an abomination from hell that needs to be burned at the stake. So what's the plot here? Well, it's another simple plot and another pretty lazy one. SpongeBob, after some shenanigans trying to get his spatula out from the top of the Krusty Krab ceiling, gets a splinter rammed into his thumb. So first he tries to pull it out, and we see him, struggle and be in clear pain as he's trying to do it. Then he has to try to keep it hidden from work so that no one else notices. And then he calls Patrick. He may only have one scene in this episode, but it is one of those scenes that just makes you hate a character. It's one of those scenes that just makes you want to take that character and punch them in the face. Instead of actually helping SpongeBob, or at least giving it a good old college try like he did in something like Suds, instead, Patrick makes the injury worse. How exactly? Well, by taking out a mallet, ramming the splinter deeper into SpongeBob's thumb, causing it to swell to a horrid size, and then covering it in garbage from the dumpster to infect it. the Patrick I know is not that stupid. The Patrick I know would not stoop to that kind of level. Oh, and not only that, if that wasn't bad enough, when SpongeBob tries to tell Dr. Patrick that what he's doing isn't helping, Patrick acts like a condescending prick and makes SpongeBob apologize despite the fact that he's the one on the right, not Patrick. Like I said, it's one of those episodes where you just want to find a character and you just want to punch him in the face for being so stupid and for doing the exact opposite of actually helping. But thankfully, that's all we get of Patrick in this atrocity, as after this scene he just goes away and we go straight to Squidward ratting out SpongeBob that he has an injury. So SpongeBob shows this disgusting, vein, pus-spewing thing, and, well, Squidward faints, like probably the rest of the audience would, and Mr. Krabs pulls out the Splinter. And then he gets pus spewed all over him. Yes, I kid you not, pus. Actual pus. Who thought that was okay to show to kids? Who really thought that that belonged in a kids show? Apparently a deranged psychopath, because no one with a functioning brain should know that that is completely unacceptable to show to children. It is needlessly violent, it is cruel to SpongeBob for no reason, despite the fact that SpongeBob himself is not that bad in this episode as a character. And it's just an episode that makes you want to puke. It's one of the most infamous and disgusting episodes, and it's one of those episodes that everyone points to when they make the conclusion that that post-movie SpongeBob is absolute abominable garbage. And while I mostly agree, I can still say that not all modern SpongeBob is bad. That's the notion that I'm trying to work against with these reviews. Because not all of post-movie SpongeBob is bad. Heck, we started out with 2 pretty good episodes of Spongicus and Suction Cup Symphony. There are good episodes in modern SpongeBob, they are. But it's just buried under so much garbage that it's hard to find them. And this is one of those episodes that made everyone quit SpongeBob or realize that SpongeBob is not at all the same show that it used to be. And I can't say I don't see why. Thankfully, I jumped the shark by this point, and I did not see this episode until years later. But when I finally saw it, oh man, even as someone who's supposed to be desensitized to the most disgusting gore horror movies can make, this episode still gets under my skin, and it made me revile and revolt in horror. It is an episode that is needlessly gruesome, that is unacceptably violent, cruel to a character for no reason, has terrible writing, is outright lazy. It's an episode that everyone's already talked about to death, and all I'm doing is just adding fuel to the fire. Do not, I repeat, do not watch this episode. It needs to disappear as fast as possible. This review is only for the archives, and then after this, I want to completely forget that this horrible, putrid abomination even exists. Final verdict for this episode is 0. 0 out of 10. It is a terrible, garbage, dumpster fire episode that I'd go so far as to say is outright unwatchable. Is it as bad as Gone? Who knows? I think both are actually just as bad as the other. But Splinter is definitely more infamous, so I guess I'll give it a little bit of boost. It is definitely by far the worst episode we've looked at this show so far, and I wish I could say it gets better from here, but it really doesn't, because there's so much other garbage, terrible episodes in this season. And this is just one of the many that we still have yet to cover. For lack of a better term, this episode, let's move on to Slide Whistle Stooges before I put my fist through my phone screen. Okay, now that we're done with you know what, we are still ending on a bad episode. A very bad episode. Is it a 0 out of 10 unwatchable garbage dumpster fire episode? No. But still a terrible episode. Because it's another Squidward torture episode. And even worse, this one has Stockholm Syndrome. You know, when the kidnapped falls in love with their kidnapper kind of thing, or joins them in their own sick game. Yeah, that's what this episode is. And it is so disappointing to see Squidward have to resort to that. So, what's the plot of this one? Well, once again, it's pretty generic, basic, and simple. SpongeBob and Patrick get slide whistles and ignore every single person with it that they see, including Squidward. And after being annoyed for a while, Squidward takes a slide whistle, and after getting praised by SpongeBob and Patrick, he joins them in their shenanigans, only for him to end up crashing off a cliff in a truck, which causes injury. And then we have SpongeBob and Patrick still using the slide whistles to make fun of those in the hospital. That is morally reprehensible in every single way, shape, and form. If there's one thing you do not mock, it's people that are hospitalized or injured or, I don't know, dying. That is one line you do not cross. And to see Squidward join them in their nonsense is so disappointing because, at least in some of these other torture episodes, he doesn't succumb to their terrible torture. He still resists, and he still tries to be, well, Squidward. But now, this is an episode that flips that script because it's him joining in the nonsense, joining in annoying people. And after he imitates a baby, he ends up in a truck that goes off a cliff and he ends up being injured. So, the slide whistles are annoying. SpongeBob and Patrick are mid-season stupid, as probably to be expected. Squidward ends up joining in their torment, succumbing to Stockholm Syndrome, goes off a truck and becomes injured, and the episode ends with making fun of the hospitalized, sick, and dying. Do I need to say any more than that? This episode's trash. Like, it may not be worse than that other one, but it is trash. Absolute, abysmal, abominable trash. I mean, it was on freaking... what was the guy's name? Mobros. Mobros, Animate Balls, worst episodes of the entire show. For a reason. This episode is annoying. This episode is morally reprehensible. And it's just another episode of Squidward getting tortured for no reason. Yeah, 1 out of 10. I literally have nothing else to say, but thankfully that is the last episode we have to talk about today. Let's move on to our overall thoughts and end this video so that I can regain my sanity. Dear Jeebus Atheist Mo, that was painful. Four garbage episodes in one review. I mean, yeah, sure, RoundPants isn't as bad, but oh my goodness gracious. This is one of the most rough, horrible, negative reviews that I've ever had to do. And considering that I just ripped apart the Borderlands movie not too long ago, that's saying something. But the good news is, now that it's done, we never have to talk about it again. Yay! So thank you guys so much for watching all the way through to the end. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this almost every single day. Hopefully the next video is a lot more joyful. And stay tuned because we aren't quite out of the dumpster fire yet. There's still a lot of garbage to go. But next time, we only have to look at one bad episode. It's just a shame that the next one's going to be an infamous terrible garbage episode. So, join me next time when we talk about arguably the worst of the Squidward torture episodes. Yes, that's saying something, I know. Boating Buddies. And the surprisingly underrated, great episode that is Krabby Chronicle. So until then, thanks for watching. I'm going to go get a throat lozenge now so I can give my throat a break and try to regain my composure after going off on these episodes. And I will see you in the next. Lesson I was to forget, so listen and you won't regret. Be true to yourself, don't miss your chance, and you won't end up like the fool who